Have you ever worked so hard for your family that you slowly lost yourself without even realizing it? Have you ever given everything, your time, your energy, your youth, believing you were building love, only to wake up one day and feel like a stranger in your own home? This is the story of a man who thought sacrifice meant silence, who believed love meant endurance, and who learned almost too late that losing yourself is never the price of real love. His name was Daniel. From the outside, Daniel's life looked stable. He had a decent job at a mid-sized company, a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, and a wife named Emily, whom he loved deeply. Every morning, Daniel woke up before sunrise. While the world was still asleep, he was already preparing for another long day. He would move quietly through the kitchen, make his coffee, glance at Emily sleeping peacefully, and feel a sense of pride. Everything he was doing, he believed, was for her, for them. Daniel was not born rich. He grew up in a small apartment with parents who struggled financially. As a child, he watched his father work double shifts and his mother count every dollar before paying bills. He remembered the stress, the arguments about money, the silent tension at the dinner table, and he promised himself one thing: when I grow up, my family will never feel this fear. That promise became his fuel. It became his identity. In school, Daniel worked harder than anyone else. While others enjoyed parties and vacations, he stayed focused. While friends spent money freely, he saved. He believed discipline was love, sacrifice was protection, success was security. Years later, when he married Emily, he felt proud. She was kind, intelligent, and full of dreams. In the beginning, they would talk for hours about their future. They would sit on the floor of their small apartment, eating simple dinners, laughing about nothing, dreaming about everything. Those were the days when time felt slow and love felt effortless. But as life moved forward, responsibilities grew heavier. Rent turned into a mortgage. Simple dinners turned into business meetings. Long conversations turned into short updates. Daniel's job became more demanding. Promotions required longer hours. Longer hours meant less time at home. But Daniel didn't complain. In his mind, this was the price of stability. This was what a good husband did. Every late night at the office felt like proof of his dedication. Every exhausted morning felt like evidence of his commitment. He told himself, "I am doing this for us." At first, Emily understood. She supported his ambition. She encouraged his goals. But slowly, something changed. She began to feel alone. The house was bigger now, but quieter. The financial stress was gone, but emotional distance started growing. She would wait for him at dinner, but he would come home late. She would try to start conversations, but he would be too tired. Not angry, not cruel, just empty. Daniel didn't see it. He thought providing was enough. He thought love was measured in effort, not presence. He thought exhaustion was honorable. Years passed like this. Promotions came. Salaries increased. The house improved. The car upgraded. But the laughter, it became rare. The long talks, almost gone. Daniel became a machine of responsibility. Wake up, work, provide, repeat. One evening, after an especially long day, Daniel came home earlier than usual. He felt proud. Tonight I'll surprise Emily, he thought. He imagined them sitting together, maybe watching a movie, maybe reconnecting like before. But when he walked inside, the house felt different. Quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. On the kitchen table, there was a letter. His heart beat faster. He picked it up slowly. The words were simple, but they felt heavy. Emily wrote that she felt invisible. She wrote that she didn't need a perfect provider. She needed a partner. She said she felt like she was living with a shadow of the man she once loved. She wasn't angry. That was the hardest part. She was just tired. Tired of feeling alone in a marriage. Tired of competing with a job. Tired of waiting for moments that never came. Daniel sat down in silence. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about work. He wasn't calculating bills or planning strategies. He was thinking about something he had ignored for too long. When did love turn into obligation? When did ambition replace affection? When did he stop listening? He looked around the house. The expensive furniture, the decorations, the symbols of success. None of it spoke back to him. None of it felt warm. And in that moment, Daniel understood something painful. He had kept his childhood promise about money, but he had broken something far more important. He had protected his family from financial fear, but he had unknowingly created emotional distance. And now, he had to face the possibility that success without connection is a lonely victory. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in the living room, the letter still in his hands, reading the same sentences again and again, as if the words might change. But they didn't. Each line felt heavier than the last. He wasn't angry at Emily. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't even confused. He was ashamed, not because he had failed financially, not because he had made mistakes in business, but because for the first time, he saw clearly what he had refused to see for years. He had been physically present in the house, but emotionally absent in the marriage. And the worst part? He truly believed he was doing everything right. As the early morning light began to enter through the windows, Daniel thought about his father. He remembered those long nights when his father came home exhausted, barely speaking, sitting silently at the dinner table. Daniel used to think, when I grow up, I'll be different. And yet, without realizing it, he had repeated the same pattern. Different income, same distance, different house, same silence. That realization hit him harder than anything Emily wrote. It wasn't just about his marriage. It was about identity. Daniel had built his entire self-worth around being the provider, the strong one, the responsible one, the reliable one. He believed vulnerability was weakness. Rest was laziness. Emotional conversations were distractions. He convinced himself that love meant sacrifice, and sacrifice meant suffering quietly. But now he was forced to confront a painful truth. Sacrifice without communication becomes isolation. He stood up and walked into the bedroom. Emily was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, as if she had been waiting. There was no anger in her eyes, just sadness. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. This was new for him. He was used to leading meetings, solving problems, making decisions quickly. But this required honesty, and honesty felt terrifying. Finally, he said softly, I thought I was protecting us. Emily looked at him and replied gently, I never wanted protection from life. I just wanted to face it with you. That sentence broke something inside him, but not in a destructive way. It broke his pride. It broke his illusion. It broke the false belief that love could survive without presence. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't defend himself. He didn't explain. He didn't justify. He listened. And listening felt uncomfortable because it forced him to sit with the truth. Emily told him how lonely she felt during dinners alone, how she stopped sharing small details about her day because he always seemed distracted, how she missed the man who used to laugh easily and dream out loud. She wasn't asking for luxury. She wasn't asking for perfection. She was asking for connection. Daniel realized that he had mastered strategy in business, but he had neglected strategy in love. He planned meetings carefully. He scheduled deadlines. He prioritized growth. But he never scheduled time to simply sit with his wife and talk. He treated his marriage like something that would survive automatically, like a machine that didn't require maintenance. But relationships are not machines. They are living things. They grow when nourished. They weaken when ignored. That morning, Daniel made a decision that felt small on the surface but powerful underneath. He didn't promise dramatic change overnight. He didn't make grand speeches. Instead, he said, "I don't know how to fix everything immediately, but I want to learn how to be present again." And for the first time in a long time, Emily smiled slightly. The next weeks were not magical. There were awkward conversations. There were uncomfortable silences. There were moments when Daniel's old habits tried to return. Work emails still came late at night. Deadlines still demanded attention. The world didn't slow down just because he decided to change. But Daniel started doing something different. When he came home, he put his phone away, completely. Not face down on the table, not silent but within reach. He placed it in another room. At first it felt strange, almost like withdrawal. He realized how addicted he had become to productivity, to constant motion, to being needed by everyone except the person who mattered most. He began asking Emily simple questions again. "How was your day?" But this time he didn't interrupt. He didn't check notifications. He maintained eye contact. Slowly, something began to shift. The house didn't change, the furniture didn't change, but the energy changed. They started taking evening walks, short ones at first, 10 minutes around the block, then longer ones. They talked about small things, neighbors, weather, random memories. It felt almost like starting over, not as strangers, but as two people rediscovering each other. Daniel also started reflecting deeply on his definition of success. For years, success meant income, security, and status. Now he added a new measurement: presence. If he could earn money but lose connection, was that truly success? If he could lead a team but fail to lead his own emotions, was that strength? These questions reshaped him from the inside. One evening, Daniel sat alone again in the living room, the same place where he had read the letter. But this time, he felt different. Not perfect, not fully transformed, but aware. He understood something powerful. Being a strong man is not about carrying everything alone. It is about knowing when to slow down, knowing when to listen, knowing when to choose love over ego. He realized that ambition is beautiful, but it must not replace affection. Discipline is powerful, but it must not destroy intimacy. Responsibility is important, but it must not silence vulnerability. Daniel didn't quit his job. He didn't abandon his goals. He didn't suddenly become someone else. Instead, he learned balance. He began setting boundaries at work. He stopped volunteering for every extra project. He learned to say, "I'll handle this tomorrow." At first, it felt risky, but something surprising happened. The world didn't collapse. The company continued functioning. The emails waited. And his marriage? It slowly began breathing again. Months later, Daniel and Emily sat together at the dining table, not across from each other in silence, but next to each other, laughing about something small and silly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was simple. And that simplicity felt powerful. Daniel finally understood that love does not disappear suddenly. It fades quietly when neglected, and it returns slowly when nurtured. He had spent years trying to protect his family from financial fear. Now he understood that emotional neglect is a different kind of poverty, one that money cannot fix. The lesson he learned was not that ambition is wrong. The lesson was that ambition without presence creates distance. Success without connection feels empty, and love without time slowly becomes memory. That night, before going to sleep, Daniel looked at Emily and said something he had never said before. "Thank you for not giving up on me." And she replied softly, "Thank you for finally coming home."